I need a horse and a gun.
No, you need rest and something to eat. I'm going after him.
No. He'll never find it without me.
You wait till morning, he'll have a day's head start. He'll get away.
No, he won't. He's afraid. He knows how far I came for him. Same as that elk. When they get afraid, they run deep into the woods. I got him trapped. He doesn't know it yet.
How can you be so sure?
He has everything to lose.
I can't let you go back out there. Not again.
I ain't afraid to die anymore. I've done it already.
And that was a clip from The Revenant. I'm delighted to say Leonardo DiCaprio is back on the show. Leonardo, how are you, sir?
Good to see you again.
Are you happy?
Am I happy? Yeah, I'm a happy guy.
When I was walking in to do the interview with you, it was a bit rainy and it was quite cold and it was quite dark. And I was about to start complaining, and then I thought, no, I've just seen The Revenant. I know what Leonardo went through, and now is not the time to complain about anything. Tell us a little bit about the story of Hugh Glass. Although I don't think, are you actually referred to as Hugh at any stage in the movie?
I think Glass is what I'm referred to throughout most of the film. Yeah. I mean, it was an interesting subject to do a movie about, because so little is known about this man historically. He's almost like a Paul Bunyan type of campfire legend that's been told from generation to generation. And I think what was most fascinating about him, for certainly the new frontiersmen in America at that time, is his ability to conquer or adapt to nature, the savagery of nature. And here is this man in this sort of lawless landscape, gets mauled by a bear. He travels through hundreds of miles of freezing cold wilderness to reap revenge on the men that did him wrong. It was the first wave of capitalism out west. This was before President Polk made United States sea to shining sea. So it was very much like the Amazon. You had French and English.
So it's 1823.
Yes. Yeah. It was a fur trapping environment, but they had indigenous cultures there. It was still native landscape. And here you have this new frontiersman, this new American that's able to go into the lands, survive the toughest and harshest elements, and come out alive. So it was, so little is known historically because there was no writers at this time period. There was only journals of fur trappers to give us an understanding of what this landscape was like. So it was kind of like doing a science fiction movie in a lot of ways. We had to recreate what we thought, sort of etchings and journals and people's sort of Native American stories to give us a picture of what this world was like.
And there was a book that came out, The Revenant, a novel of revenge by Michael Punke. There was a movie in 71, Man in the Wilderness. Did you use any of that, or have you kind of started again and gone back to those original etchings that you were talking about?
Yeah, I think we kind of started again. I saw the movie, I read the book, but more than anything, it was about a lot of these nostalgic historians that we had, guys that really like to submerge themselves in nature, these mountain men that like to reenact this time period, reenact what it was like to live in these conditions. They taught us the most, but for me, it took on all these other meanings. It was so much about the colonization of this environment, capitalism taking over the natural world, the sort of the carnage that we leave when we come into pristine, untouched landscapes, and became about survival and human nature and greed and opportunism and a lot of other different things. I mean, that's what we set out to do when we made this movie. It was a very linear, sort of simple story. Also, the question of revenge is revenge something that ultimately can quench man's thirst? What are we going to get when we put ourselves in this environment? What's going to happen to us when we're there? And Alejandro wanted it to feel almost like a documentary and put ourselves in the elements as much as possible and ask ourselves these questions.
The making of the movie almost seems as much of a legend already. The shoot sounds extraordinary. Do you think you'll ever be a part of a production like this?
No, I don't think so. I can't.
So it takes 9 months?
Yeah, but more than that, it was, like I said, it was like neorealism. He wanted it to feel, there is, CGI in this movie. It's used very sparingly, but he really wanted it to feel like virtual reality, like you are submerged in the wilderness. We shot for an hour and a half only at the end of the day, only in natural light that our great cinematographer Chivo wanted to.
Why was that?
He's that, as they say, that's when God speaks. That's when, they're painting a canvas every single day, and that's the light that they wanted to capture. And it's favorites that time period has been historically the favorite time period amongst filmmakers. I can't describe.
Is that quite
exactly
frustrating as an actor though? Because don't you think, let's get some lights up, let's do a scene now. Come on.
It was actually at first tough for a lot of us actors to adapt to, because there was so much rehearsal. Every day was a rehearsal process, and then we'd shoot this frenetic pace for an hour and a half to try to capture that. But I actually started to adjust to it and love it, because so much of your relationship is with the camera and the other actors and your scenario, that when that's answered all day long, it settles you more into what I feel is, a more instinctive film going experience as an actor. You concentrate on you. You're not concentrating on 1,000 different elements that come into play when you're making a movie. It can be very distracting, and I actually grew to love it very much, and it honed me in as far as what I wanted to do performance-wise.
How tough was it? I mean, there are all sorts of stories about what you achieved. You learned to shoot a musket, you built a fire, you were eating raw bison liver, you were naked in minor temperatures of -5 up to filming in -40, you were buried in snow. All of that true? And if so, which was the worst moment?
Look, as far as a filmmaking experience is concerned, yes, this was the most difficult. But, you look at it's hard because you look at what these guys actually did, and you look at stories of survival, and people are really doing this stuff. But yes, as far as a movie is concerned, it was the most difficult. All that stuff is true, but we got to talk about it at great length. Just the opening sequence of this movie was almost a month of rehearsal in the wilderness to pull off this sequence. And once he set that bar so high, everything that we did from then on needed to have that much preparation, that much thought. And I never got injured making this movie. I never got really hurt at all, because we prepared immensely for every single sequence. So, it was, as far as difficulty, yeah, when you actually have to do it, it's incredibly difficult, but the demons that you're up against. So
I wonder if that opening sequence, when I was watching the opening sequence, which is an extraordinary attack on the beach, I'll leave it like that. I was thinking it sort of resets everything, like the first 20 minutes of Saving Private Ryan reset those kind of movies.
Yeah.
Would you say that's fair?
I would, and I didn't. It's the testament to working with a master filmmaker. You don't even know necessarily what they're trying to capture, but he, off of his experience with Birdman, as you know, he has these long these long takes that bring you into the mindset of a multitude of different characters, and that's what he was trying to accomplish with the onset of that shot, is bring you into the headspace of each one of the leads of this movie, so you get their perspective. I actually didn't know he was trying to accomplish that, but it was one of those, that and the bear sequence, I think, set a precedent for the rest of the movie that I think people have really started talking about, and rightfully so, because I think so much as what he's done in those sequences is incredibly groundbreaking cinematically.
The bear attack is extraordinary. What can you explain, detail about what that was like? Obviously, it's best experienced once people go and see it in the cinema.
Yeah.
Can you tell us anything about what you did and how you did it?
As far as
without spoiling the magic.
As far as the specificity of how we did it, Alejandro, our director, has told me implicitly, don't talk in too much detail, because they feel like magicians, so to speak, and they don't want to.
Quite rightly so.
Rightfully so. But what I will say is, it was a combination of me really doing that, and being manipulated by, you know, an entire stunt team, and then the CGI was added on. And what he's done again with that CGI element in this movie is a lot different than I think most people have experienced as far as CG is concerned. I think oftentimes we feel like there's a weightlessness to CG where anything is possible, but he's used it in a way that allows you as an audience to feel grounded. You feel the weight of this animal, this bee. You feel the breath. You feel the sweat. You feel the blood, and almost feels like you're some shrew scurrying along, you know, being voyeuristic, watching something that you shouldn't be seeing, and you're getting blood splattered in your face. It's
a visceral experience.
It really is, unlike any action sequence, frankly, that I've ever seen. And that's why people are, and it's the moments that he creates of silence where you feel the most tense and the most on the edge of your seat.
When you were on the show last time for Wolf of Wall Street, you said that you like polarizing films. Mm-hmm. You like films that don't spoon feed the audience. Mm-hmm. And this presumably is another in that category.
Well, hopefully so. I mean, you know, so many different meaning. This movie took on so many different meanings when we were doing it. It became, I think that what Alejandro realized is that he wanted to push ourselves to the limit to come up with some answers about what this meant to us. And it took on a lot of different meanings for me. Certainly, you know, as I discussed before, you know, the sort of clash of Native American cultures with capitalism, where we are today, and from an environmental perspective, what all this stuff meant to Hugh Glass, what survival is in the modern era. But none of this is kind of spoon-fed to you. Like I said, I think it's all in the subtext of this movie. And I think it's, you know, it's pertinent to today, but it's not overt. It's not shoving it in people's faces. And I think that some people, you know, wondered what this movie is about. You know, why make this movie? You know, I've heard this, you know, why did you guys do this? And to me, those are this type of film is the one that I think will reveal itself more in time.
When you got your Golden Globe, congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
You made a point of saying that it was for all First Nation people and all indigenous communities around the world. I think you had to learn 2 Native American languages. Why did you feel it was important to make that point?
Because I think we've oftentimes think that we've learned from the ignorance of our history, but in a lot of ways, you know, certainly in this, as far as this subject is concerned, we haven't. I got to go to places like the Canadian tar sands. You see stories of what's going on in America. Got to go to South America. You go to Indonesia, places that are beholden to the, you know, the natural resources that are to be extracted by corporations also happen to be the most beautiful landscapes in the world, with indigenous people that have had a culture there for thousands and thousands of years. And we're seeing systematically the same story happen all over the world. Companies are going in, they're poisoning the rivers, cutting down the trees, and as a result decimating these indigenous cultures that are the ones that have rights to these lands, and their culture and their environment is being sacrificed. And you know, it's a sad story, but I got to see a lot of this stuff firsthand, and that's why I wanted to make a statement about it, because it's happening in an unprecedented way in human history now. It really is. Our story, Revenant, has to do, you know, with the fur trade, the first move out west to extract resources. But we are decimating indigenous lands and natural places of great beauty, unlike ever before in our history.
We're speaking just a few moments before the Oscar nominations. Will you be checking that on your way out, or will you?
Oh, I'm sure they're all going to be telling me whether it's happened or it's not happened, who's nominated, what's happening. I'm sure we're going to have some sort of discussion about that. Yeah.
Do you think? Did you wake up this morning and think, I wonder, or you know, been there?
The truth is, it is beyond your control. And no, I mean, of course, I'd be a fool to sit here and say I'm not wondering what's going to happen, or you know, but you've done the movie. You know, you've done the movie, and yeah. Of course, being recognized by your peers is a great thing, but it is out of my hands at this moment.
And back to Martin Scorsese next. Is that right?
No, I don't have anything set to do.
Take a year out, Leonardo. You've had a tough year. You know?
I may. I'm doing a movie about climate change as well, so that's what I'm working on. I've for the last 2 years been doing a climate change documentary, interviewing everyone under the sun about the issue. Did it while I was doing The Revenant, so I'm going to continue that.
Leonardo, always a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Great questions, and it's great to be able to talk sometimes. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, that's what radio.
I know. Instead of them kind of, which is what they do like with Entertainment Tonight in America, they basically ask you a couple questions to appease you and make you feel like, oh, great, you're asking about the movie. Then they go, so, did you eat the bison liver? Yes or no? Did you throw up? Lady Gaga. And then that's all that they throw out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.